Welcome to the channel and back to our continuing study of the spiritual disciplines, specifically in this video and the last one and the next one following, the discipline of service. Now, in our last video, we looked at the biblical instruction for service. And in this video, I want to reflect on our motivation to developing this discipline. See, serving is one of those wonderful church words that often comes up in sermons and every time there's a need for more people to help with the children's ministry. Sadly, it is also usually in those same moments that the idea of serving can be abused or minimized simply because there is a need and it is hard to see beyond it. See, in those moments, those listening will hear the desperate plea and will usually respond out of guilt in some way, rather than from a position of having developed the spiritual discipline of service. And while it is nice to have the volunteers, don't get me wrong, the joy of serving will often get missed out on. It can also be, in those cases, a place where feelings of resentment and burnout can develop if not handled carefully. So how do we avoid that? How do we develop this as an active discipline in our lives? Donald Whitney, in his book, Spiritual Disciplines for the Christian Life, suggests the discipline of service is motivated in 6 ways. And the first way he suggests is that it is motivated by obedience. As Christians, we hold that Jesus is Lord of our lives and we love him as such. Our desire to serve, should not be based on what the task is or what we get out of it, but simply because it is our joy to follow God's will in asking us to the particular task. Sitting on the sidelines while others do the work, especially if you feel a nudge from God that you should be doing something, is more an act of disobedience and does not honor the work of the Holy Spirit in our lives. The second motivation that Whitney offers is motivated by gratitude. Remember that Jesus came not to be served, but to serve. He came to serve you through his death on the cross, taking the punishment that you and I deserve for our self-centered ways. Through his act, we have been given forgiveness and freedom from the sin that held us apart from him. Because of Jesus, we can know God's love, we can know his presence, and we can know hope for an eternal future. And if that doesn't stir in you a gratitude that motivates your service, I don't know what will. When God, therefore, asks you to serve others, he's not doing so to put us in our place, but to allow the opportunity for our lives and our actions to point those who have not yet experienced the grace of God towards him. Remember, Jesus will never ask anything of you that he was not willing to do himself. Number 3, service is motivated by gladness. Psalm 100 verse 2 instructs us to serve the Lord with gladness. We are to find the joy of the Lord in our experiences and serve from that position. What about being a child of God would steal your joy? Nothing. We grumble about a task because we look through the human experience of position and station. How we serve, with gladness or complaint, says an awful lot about how we view our relationship with God. Let those who see your service see also our God who delights in his children. Number 4, service is motivated by forgiveness, not guilt. We cannot earn God's forgiveness and grace. He gives it freely. Likewise, we are not to serve from the perspective of God keeping score on how well or often we serve. Serving in this way, because we feel like we have to, or feel guilty if we do not serve, or because we haven't earned enough for God's pleasure, cheapens what we do. There is no joy or love or passion in that service. Instead, we should serve gladly, not because we are obligated to, but because we have been given the ultimate freedom to be able to. And the fifth, service is motivated by humility. This is a difficult motivation to master simply because even though we try our best, it is nice to get noticed for what we have done. It is doubly hard when those unnoticed tasks are ones that we feel are really and truly beneath us. But as Christians, we are to serve with humility, as Jesus did, not thinking that we are better than anyone else, and instead looking for ways to serve that will, in fact, help to elevate those around us. Maybe it is in helping a coworker when we know that they will get the promotion instead of us. Helping behind the scenes of an event when we know the organizer will get the credit even though we did the bulk of the work. That's serving from a motivation that's motivated by humility. And finally, number 6, service that is motivated by love. Paul tells us in Galatians chapter 5, verse 13, to serve one another in love. If we are living the command of Jesus to love God and to love people, that is lived out and expressed through our actions of service. I mean, there are a lot of things, I'm sure, that none of us would do for any amount of money. But because we love God and the people He loves, even those tasks are bearable because our focus is on Him and not on us. When love is the motivation, we are no longer living for our own self, but for God. Now, I recognize that during this time of COVID-19, the opportunities for service are more limited, but I would encourage you to take whatever moments of service that are available to you, whether you choose to step into that service or not, and examine your motivation. What is truly motivating you to serve or to choose not to serve in that situation? Think back and then maybe think ahead, and when a time comes when we will be gathered back together and there's more opportunities for serving in the wider body, those opportunities in your church that you had to serve or will have to serve, maybe in your workplace or your neighborhood or in your home, think on those and how will taking time right now, how about taking time right now to begin to develop the discipline of service in your life? And how will doing so change your attitude towards those opportunities that you have engaged in, maybe you've lost enthusiasm for, or maybe those opportunities that you've turned your nose up at and said, this isn't for me, I don't want to do that. How will developing this discipline of service reframe your perspective and the attitude that you have towards that? Ask God to guide you where He would delight to see you flourish in service, and then follow Him there with gladness. Now we have one more video that will be coming up on the discipline of service, and I hope you will join me for it. Until then, may you know the joy of the Lord as you serve Him in whatever way you find, in this day and in the coming days.